Well, hello, friends, and happy Wednesday to you. It's been a while, right? It's so wonderful to be here and be back. Welcome to today's Level Up conversation. We are certainly live, and it is Wednesday, and it's wonderful to be here with you. So let's dive right in.
And now, get ready. I present to you Level Up with Winnie Sun. Market Update. Award-winning financial pro. Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, hello. How fun it is to be back with all of you. Happy Wednesday. Wow, I see Sadiq already joining us from YouTube. It is so wonderful to be back with you. If you didn't know, I haven't been here in a few weeks. We've been working on a whole bunch of stuff back in headquarters. Also, my producer had a well-deserved vacation. It's been crazy good, but we are back and we are definitely looking forward to sharing with you some of the big headlines that are happening the last couple weeks. For those of you who are brand new to the show, hello, I'm Winnie, your host, an award-winning financial pro, Forbes contributor, and a CNBC council member and contributor. And we're streaming here live on a whole bunch of different social media platforms. And of course, if you want to look existing previous episodes, we're going to share more information on how you can check out those as well. But let's just say currently the market has just closed like literally minutes ago, and it wasn't a good day. The Dow closed down over 330 points, NASDAQ down over 212 points, and the S&P 500 also down 35 points. So across the board, right across the board, not a good day in the financial markets. I'm going to talk about a little bit about why that happened. There continues to be a lot of concern. And one of the things that investors absolutely don't enjoy, and you might be one of these people, because I am certainly one, is we don't like instability. We don't like insecurity, instability. And let me just say that many of you probably feel this way because I've been getting messages from you, direct messages from you. I've been seeing headlines as well of a lot of concerns of where we are currently, where the financial markets will be, where the Fed is going to lead us in terms of interest rates, and how companies are going to be reporting earnings at the end of the year. Because a lot of the talk about inflation and tariffs, well, that continues. In fact, there's a recent inflation report that just occurred. This was a September Consumer Price Index, a CPI report. Now, if you know, this is a key inflation measure, right? We really pay attention to this report because we want to get a sense as investors what this really means. Well, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, has already criticized sort of outdated data collection methods. Is under a lot of pressure due to a lot of the cuts. And if you didn't know already, the government shutdown. So with most economic data currently paused during this government shutdown, the CPI report is actually a really major release. One of the few reports that we're still getting, mainly because it's used to calculate things like Social Security, the cost of living increases. Now, despite concerns, though, economists are saying that they expect sort of no surprises. Currently, annual inflation is projected at 3.1%. Monthly increases are expected at 0.4% and maybe 0.3% in core, which is sort of similar to what we saw in August. However, Wall Street analysts and investors and whatnot are actually worried about the quality of the data. Now, if you can't even trust the quality of data, that definitely counts as insecurity, instability. Trust is a big thing. And I think when we're making financial decisions, for better or worse, we feel like we need to have a certain level of the ability to trust some of the data, at least the data that's coming out of the United States, right? And of course, inflation numbers are really critical. We need to know about, housing information. We need to know about mortgage rates. We need to know about tariffs and income coming in and spending and everything. Well, now economists, including some major financial firms, believe that the CPI report might give the Fed just enough to cover and give us another cut in interest rates before the year end. But again, if the data isn't perfect, which I think we all agree, the data probably can't ever be completely perfect, but if the data isn't reliable, how do they make this decision? Now, we do know that the Fed meets this week. Now, there is talk about the expectation of another 0.25% rate cut, possibly the first of two. But beyond that, there continues to be uncertainty. So it's definitely a story that we're going to continue to follow and watch. But that being said, right now we're kind of in financial limbo. We don't know whether to we don't even know if we should be feeling good or not good at this point. But overall, we do know that there are still some inflation concerns, but that there is good news that gives the Fed perhaps pause to be able to help make some cuts. But it's sort of a wait to see story. And with that, let's jump over to the big story of the year, maybe for many years to come, and that is to talk about artificial intelligence. I'm going to talk about something that came out being shared on NBC News and the Associated Press as well, talking about what OpenAI is doing. Now, many of you are ChatGPT users. You've told me, you've shared this with me, and I know many of you are very pro AI, but with a little bit of hesitancy. And I think that's fair to say for a lot of people that use it, follow it, read about it. Well, AI, obviously, we know continues to evolve. And OpenAI has just launched a brand new web browser called Atlas. Now, this is going to be a direct challenge to the one and only Google Chrome, which is, as you know, the most used web browser currently globally with over 3 billion users. Well, Atlas is going to be designed as the first AI integrated web browser, integrating ChatGPT's capabilities right into your browsing experience, which they say will offer smarter, faster answers to your questions. Now, for those of you who currently use Chrome, Google Chrome, they call it Chrome, Google Chrome, I currently use it. You probably use it, and you've probably seen that, well, there are some AI capabilities, but this, being that this is sort of AI-led design of browser, you know that this is probably going to be taking everything to another level. Now, this is going to be starting on Apple Mac OS, and it's going to soon expand over to Windows, to iOS, and then Android as well. They plan to and hope to become the go-to browser across all these platforms. Now, that's big news, right? Because I think you would all agree that for a long time now, we've had different web browser options like Safari and Firefox, but bit by bit, we all started to navigate over to Google Chrome. Now, I'm sure there's some of you watching there saying, well, when I don't use Google Chrome. Now, I get it. But by and large, many businesses and individuals use Google Chrome because there are a lot of capabilities. Many of us also use Google Docs, right? And maybe use Gmail. So that integration has been very popular. But now the challenger is going to be OpenAI, which currently has over 800 million users on ChatGPT alone. Of course, they're saying that it's still losing money, but they're saying that Atlas could be a way to boost more traffic and, of course, add revenue. At the end of the day, it's about ad revenue. So this comes just after OpenAI said that they actually considered, and they would consider buying Chrome if the courts had forced Google to sell it during its recent antitrust trial. Well, that sale, that never really happened. So the AI browser space is now really heating up. Now we know there's other companies such as Perplexity launching its own AI-powered comment browser, and even a sort of and they've also sort of tried to purchase Google's Chrome as well. That didn't seem to pan out either. But either way, I think there will be a new web AI browser very soon. So for those of you who get a chance to test it, I'm certainly going to test it when it comes out. We're going to have to come back and circle back and discuss our thoughts on that for sure. Now, speaking of that, I want to talk about another story that's come out of Fortune, talking about sort of beyond the human in the loop. And this is, of course, another AI story in this AI era. Now, we know that AI is becoming sort of a bigger part of our daily work. Now, many of you who use it as part of your day-to-day work, myself included, might feel like it's not quite big enough to do everything that we need to do, but it certainly saves us a tremendous amount of time. Like a lot of things that you may have spent hours on, myself included, now, can take a matter of minutes, sometimes even seconds. Let me know, because I see CrossX Fighter is joining us on YouTube Live. It's great to see you, Joshua, back. It's great to see you here with us. Let me know what you've been using AI for, whether it be personally or at work. And how much time do you think it saved you? Do you think, give me a percentage. You feel like it's saved your work like 50% time, 25%? Because as AI is becoming just a bigger part of work, now executives are saying that it's not enough to keep sort of a human in the loop. Instead, the biggest difference is going to be judgment, especially in early career workers. Now, at Fortune's most powerful women's summit that they had recently, leaders from companies such as Microsoft and Workday are started warning that without training people on how to correctly use AI to apply sound judgment, humans risk actually becoming button pushers just for AI systems. And that can't be a good thing. So Microsoft's VP, Katie George, even said that employees now actually need to master delegation to AI agents. They need to learn how to use this tool. And for those of you who maybe are like me, who are using it aggressively, that is sort of my goal, is to learn how to master the delegation, learn the language, learn the prompting, and figure out how to teach it and work with it to get to the sort of the ideal workflow or output that normally would take me hours myself to do, right? So you're having what I tell my husband all the time. I joke with my husband, this is my assistant, one of my assistants, right? So this assistant, I need to continue to teach it to make sure it can produce the results that normally I would be working on for weeks on time. It's not quite there yet, but if you keep working your patient and you train it, it has the capability to do that. Now, of course, with these like AI agents, we're hoping it can help manage work streams and actually think with sort of that design mindset, problem solving method. Now, if you've been using AI, depending on which platform you are, you're already seeing there's a little bit of flavor, right, to it. Like they're sometimes very polite, and sometimes they're a little salty, and sometimes they're like, just stuck. And it's interesting because that sort of makes the user experience that much more fun. But it also goes to show you that as this evolves, how tricky and how scary it could be as well. So it's learning to use it and work with it, not to be scared of it, but it does require a lot of training. And so what does that mean for the future employee? Like you don't want the button pressers, but you need people to be able to make the decisions on if the output is correct or if it's ethical and everything else. So I think that sort of gives you an idea for those of you who have younger people, or for those of you who are concerned about your role in the job force as AI develops. Maybe think about those things and how you could change maybe what you're studying or your mindset or what you want to get better at. Right. So managers are going to definitely face a shift. Like every leader is going to need to act like a sort of a chief experimentation officer. It's like CEO, a different type of CEO. They're going to need to test. We're going to need to test. We're going to evolve. We're going to need to be able to embed all this new technology into the workflows, while still guiding and empowering our teams that are part of our businesses, right? So in an AI-driven world, being smart isn't just going to be enough. The future really belongs to those who can now think critically. They can lead change and also make really smart, quick, wise decisions when AI can't do that. So that was sort of the story there. And I thought I would share that with you because I think it's important for us to see what's ahead and to think how that relates to us. However, this information comes to you, think about how that could relate to your own life and how you might be able to use that information. All right, I want to continue and talk about another big company facing shakeup. And it's kind of like interesting because it goes to show the effect of AI, but it's also giving a sense of, well, certain industries, well, they're getting older, their management might be getting older, and they might be looking for shift. And this is a story being shared on NBC News talking about Warner Brothers Discovery. If you didn't know about this already, Warner Brothers Discovery, the WBD, with the parent company of HBO, CNN, Warner Brothers Studios, they actually announced that it's exploring a sale to help them maximize shareholder value. Now, the news comes after WBD said that they were going to split their cable networks from their streaming and studios. Sort of this kind of continues a trend. Like, we see this a lot right now where media companies are restructuring just so they can stay competitive. Remember, it wasn't that long ago when there was regular TV and it was all about cable, and now it's all about streaming, and now it's about even breaking that up. Now, the WBD has drawn interest from multiple buyers. They're saying possibly for the whole company or just Warner Brothers' studio arm, which, as you know, owns the franchises like Harry Potter and DC Comics. So we'll see that how that unfolds. But I just thought that was interesting of another very traditional company that's been around for a very, very long time needing to evolve in order to stay competitive. That's just the beginning. I think we're going to see more and more stories like this unfold before the end of the year. Now, speaking of unfolding, many of you probably experienced in some shape or form the recent big tech internet outage on some of your tools that you use. This definitely impacted my kids because my kids, obviously, they go to school, but a lot of their teachers are using technology to also communicate with them and also for them to upload homework, right? Even the public schools are using this technology called Canvas. Some of you are like, yes, I see you nodding virtually. And you're like, oh, yeah, I remember that happening. Well, there was a massive, massive outage. And it hit Reddit, it hit Snapchat, and so much more. This is being reported by Business Insider. Well, what got hit? Amazon Web Services, or AWS, if you didn't know. They suffered a major outage and disrupted over 100 services, including my kids' schools platform, which I know a lot of other public schools also use that platform. This impacted Reddit. I told you Venmo, Roblox, Fortnite, Wordy even. Then the issue started at Amazon Web Services Northern Virginia data center, triggered by a domain name server DNS error. Now, this, as you know, is a critical internet function that translates domain names into IP addresses. But this error caused a whole domino effect, breaking cloud services tools like network load balancers, which manage internet traffic between servers. So the problem actually started early Monday of last week. It was fully resolved later that day, but it had affected 142 plus services, according to AWS's health dashboard. Now, the scale of this disruption is critical, and although it's rare, it just sort of puts this highlight in that even though DNS issues don't happen all the time, millions upon millions of businesses actually rely on AWS for web hosting, data storage, and cloud computing. So this just goes to show you how so few technology companies have so much power, and if something's affected there, that it affects so many other businesses and even schools that are having this issue. These centers now actually use 25% of the entire state of Virginia's power, which of course then sparks growing resident concerns just about the energy use of these data centers and quality of life, despite them saying that this would create lots of economic promises as well. So we'll see how this continues. But yeah, if you were affected, let me know if it were affected. Did it affect your work, or did it affect your kids' school? It certainly affected my kids' school, not only on the the middle school area and high school level, but also my son is also taking some classes at the local community college while he's in high school, and it affected their school as well. So we'll see how that continues. But yeah, just the power of these companies and their reach and the consumption use of our energy. All right, let's continue on because I want to talk about what's going on also being shared on NPR, Planet Money, talking about the internet and what this means. Now, there is a word that they're using, and it is a word coined by Cory Doctorow, which describes how once great internet platforms like Facebook, Amazon, and Uber gradually degrade over time because, well, because it's becoming worse for users and businesses. Now, I will say this word, 'cause I know many of you are watching. I know this is streaming also on Modern Mom. It's N, bad word, ification. All right. We'll make sure to share it so you can see it. I won't say it on the air because I know we're also streaming on Modern Mom, but nonetheless, the concept is, of course, to be good to users, that platforms need to start by offering great user experiences and low prices in order to grow quickly. So just think this is like ad-free Facebook or those very cheap Uber rides when they first launched and Prime deals. But stage two, they said, is wooing the business. It's like once users are locked into the platform, that these platforms need to now shift to focus on helping business clients solve problems with advertisers and sellers and whatnot, even if it means a worse experience for regular users. Then they said there's stage three, which is a cash out, which is eventually these platforms sort of squeezing both users and businesses now with ads and fees and other tools to boost profits, but not necessary value. So Doctoral is saying that these platforms actually trap users with switching costs, right? Like losing your Kindle library if you leave Amazon and benefit from network effects, which are now making it harder for many of us to abandon these sort of platforms because it's not just this part, but we actually lose something that's really critical in another section of your life. Now, he's saying that this lack of competition and regulation um, is going to be something that we need to pay attention, saying that these platforms can treat people poorly because they don't fear losing us as their clients or being punished as well. So sort of this is like his concept of that these laws need to be fixed. There need to be fixes occurring to include laws that allow users like us to take our own content with us. So whether it be ebooks, maybe it's our social media content and contacts, right? The things that we post as well as our connections, and just push for things to be more fair so that platforms can actually work together more like open systems. Now, while the US policy has been slow to catch up, so this anti monopoly movement is definitely growing. I heard this term actually this morning. You may have heard this if you're watching the news about how the sleeping giant is starting to slowly wake up. And I think this is one of those examples as well. People are realizing that, hey, you have too much control of me in terms of technology. I used you so I could keep in touch with my family members in different parts of the world, but now you're also, controlling my usage of this and that. And so that's sort of the concept behind this word. And so I'm curious to see how you feel about that. And that it's been bridging a lot of conversation. I've been thinking a lot of people talking about this and their concept of like, what is the role of technology, right? Is it just to make money? Is it to add value? Is it a combination of the two? And where do we want to see technology going forward as we look towards 10, 20 years from now, next generation, all that stuff. All right, well, let's continue on because there's more news about Amazon. And I see, actually, before I go in there, I see a lot of comments coming in. I see X Fighter is talking about wanting to give OpenAI a try. You should. I think it's a good tool to try out. And I even see Sadiq talking about you don't. Even though you do not leave Amazon, you may lose Kindle. The purchaser is not the account, but Amazon is the owner of the Kindle ebooks. Yeah, exactly. So you've paid money for your ebook, right? And do you have access to that? I don't know. I honestly, I don't use Kindle probably as much as maybe some of you do. I'm a big fan of Libby. I don't know if you've ever checked out Libby. Big fan of Libby. It's free. It's with the library system, and it's great. But that being said, let's continue on. But there are some books that are only on Kindle and only like audiobooks are still Audible. So I definitely see the value there as well. I want to talk about Amazon's next big move. I don't know if you heard about this, but there's been so much more talk about like before it was all about like internet and dominance there, and then of course web and everything else, and now we're talking all about AI. But the next big thing, and we're talking about EV vehicles, electric vehicles, self-driving, and all that in space. Now the big thing is, and this is something that my co-host Greg Nibber would have loved, and it's all about the robots. This is being shared on the New York Times. Amazon plans to automate 75% of its operations, which could mean replacing over 500,000 human jobs, 500,000 human jobs with robots by 2033. Now, if you weren't already worried about AI, now you got to worry about robots, right? So, according to an internal strategy document there, the company actually sees automation as a way to avoid hiring 600,000 plus workers, even as it plans to double product sales. Now, that could save about 30 cents per item being packed and delivered. As we know, Amazon is already rolling out with its, in its warehouses and what uses over 1,000 robots already. This is not something new. I mean, a lot of businesses have used robots for quite some time. I remember this was years ago. I did the Tesla tour up in Silicon Valley, and they already had robots building vehicles anyways. And we do know that back in the day, Tony Hsieh with Zappos was using robots to move shoeboxes around, right? And then that collaboration, or that the coming together with Amazon using robots. As you know, you're probably not surprised that they use robots to move all the boxes. How do you think you get your delivery so quickly, right? It was that's also is definitely a lot of human great employees there, but also assisted by robots. Now, currently, of course, the warehouse uses over 1,000 robots, cutting human staff needs by nearly half. 40 more robotic centers are planned for 2027. Now, that's only a year and a half from now, so that's pretty soon. So, internally, Amazon avoids the term automation in public. They prefer sort of softer language like advanced technology or cobot. Cobot sounds good, right? Better than robot cobot, hinting sort of at a more friendly human robot partnership. But while robots continue to increase, get more developed, and they continue to rise, Amazon says it's creating sort of better paying technical roles like robotic technicians. So, something to think about, right? In fact, if more companies do bring on robots, maybe if you're just going into the workplace or you're just starting to go to college and thinking about what to study, that's something to keep in mind. Now, over 5,000 workers have already joined its robotics training programs, they said. However, a lot of people are still concerned. They're already feeling the pinch. So, for example, in Stone Mountain, Georgia, job seekers say hiring has frozen, even though no official layoffs have even been announced. But that being said, I mean, you see the writing on the wall. You know where this is heading. So, if you are in a position where you do have employment and you're okay, maybe there's something to keep in mind. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to keep your options open on what are the things you might want to increase in your skill set. I'm almost thinking this is a necessity. I think we all should be, even if you're in a great position and you feel like you're very much AI robotic proof, I don't think it would hurt to just think about a plan B. I'm a big believer in always having sort of that backup plan to your backup plan. And speaking of which, another company, Meta, parent company of Facebook, is also making a big change. This is being reported by the LA Times. Los Angeles Times here. There's actually, Meta is cutting about 600 jobs in their artificial intelligence division, believe it or not, in their AI division, as part of a push to become more competitive and agile in sort of that fast moving AI space. So they brought people to AI. Now they're cutting some of the people from AI. The layoffs are confirmed by Meta following a recent report citing a memo from the company's chief AI officer, the very famous Alexander Wang. Now, the main reason for these cuts, Meta says, is they want fewer decision makers. Let that sink in. They want fewer decision makers, aiming for a leaner team where each employee carries more responsibility and has greater impact. Less decision makers. Think about that for a second. Now, I see many of you joining me live. What does that translate to you? What is a decision maker? All right. That's a human. These changes come as Meta faces pressure to keep up with other tech giants we know in the AI space, OpenAI. We know, so many Amazon, everybody is in the AI race right now. The company, of course, didn't elaborate further publicly, but this restructuring reflects sort of this broader industry trend where big tech firms are realigning their AI resources. Now, let's be honest, at a company of this size, of Meta size, 600 employees. Now, it does sound like a lot of employees, but think about that. It's probably not as much as you would have guessed, right, on a company this size, and yet they're paring down. Um, so the question is, how many did they have before the 600? Yeah. But nonetheless, this move adds to a growing wave of job cuts in technology, particularly in roles tied to AI and innovation, despite AI being sort of a hotbed of investment and development. So much to think about. Nicholas, thank you so much for being here. It's very kind of you. And yeah, what about digital ID? I think that's an interesting thing too. I'll have to do a little bit more research on that and come up with some information on that. Um, but I want to talk about another thing. This is kind of going back to more traditional finance, but certainly still important. And that's being reported by our friends at CNBC talking about mortgage rates. Now, if you didn't know already, there's been some shift in mortgage rates, and it's actually pretty good. Now, refinance demand is 81% higher than it was a year ago because mortgage rates have actually fallen. And maybe not to the level that you're hoping for, but certainly they have fallen. In fact, mortgage rates have dropped to 6.37% last week. Now, this is the lowest it's been in a month, which has triggered a wave of refinancing. Refinance applications jumped 4% in a week and were about 81% higher than just a week ago. This is according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. A lot of people are refinancing. That being said, you might be saying, well, what about new home purchases? Well, home purchase applications actually fell 5% for the week, though they're still about 20% higher than a year ago, which does indicate that people are looking to stay put in the homes that they're currently in. If they had a higher mortgage, they wanted a chance to lock that rate and reduce it. But many buyers are still waiting for rates to fall even further, even though lenders are already offering what they think is the lowest rates in a year. And so even, many lenders are like, this is the time to purchase a home. A lot of people are just still continue to sit on the sidelines because it's not just about the mortgage price, but also because the inventory isn't significantly high, and there's just not a lot of demand in new mortgages. So that being said, that's what we got going on this week. And there's a lot more news that we're going to be covering next week. But let me know if there's any stories that you've seen on your radar. They're like, you know what, this would make for great content. Send that to me. I would love to see what's interesting to you, what's on your radar, and how we can continue to add value to you in your daily life. Thank you so much for being a part of today's Level Up Live. Do me a favor and like, subscribe, and share to stay in the know with all the latest insights. And of course, to catch full past episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun, you can check out NASDAQ, Amazon Fire, Samsung, LG, Roku, and of course, the streaming platform that you are on currently. And when sharing an episode online, thank you to so many of you. You've tagged at Winnie Sun. I've seen them. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. I need to definitely do a shout out show very, very soon. But with that, have a great week. Have a beautiful weekend if I don't talk to you, and I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye now.